Just confirming the live stream. Okay, looks good. Good afternoon. At this time, will sergeants please start their recordings?
According to the PC underway.
Thank you.
Cloud recording is up.
Thank you.
Backup is rolling.
Thank you. And Sergeant Lugo, if you may begin with your opening statement.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing of the Committees on Higher Education, jointly with Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Intergroup Relations. At this time, would all panelists please turn on your videos. To minimize disruptions, please place electronic devices to vibrate or silent. If you wish to submit testimony, you may do so at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that's testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us with this joint hearing of the Committee on Higher Education, along with the Committee on Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Intergroup Relations. The topic for today is CUNY Cultural Corps and Service Corps. I'm Councilmember Inez Barron, Chair of the committee and a proud CUNY alum. Thank you everyone for joining us here today. Academic internships have become integral to securing full-time employment and after graduation. A student resume with internship experience signals to employers that the individual is ready to enter the workforce. These opportunities can also act as a foot in the door to one's first job. Research has shown that participating in an internship has positive impacts on one's wages, increases the likelihood of getting a job interview, facilitates student transition to professional workplace, and even enhances outcomes, including academic achievement and career self-confidence. However, for many low-income students, many of whom are first-generation and/or students of color, internships are not always a viable employment option, as they are often unpaid. In fact, a 2021 National Survey of College Internship study found that nearly 40% of internships are unpaid. Consequently, unpaid internships can act as a gatekeeping mechanism, keeping low-income, first-generation and/or students of color from participating in potentially life-changing experiences and even in particular industries. CUNY students who are largely Black and Latinx, low-income and/or first-generation deserve the same opportunities to gain meaningful work experience and jumpstart their professional careers. Moreover, according to the 2018 Student Experience Survey, SES, which is the latest publicly available data and does not account for the impact of the pandemic, many CUNY students are under significant financial strain. 13% of CUNY students are financially supporting children. 9% reported being usually or always worried about having enough food in the past 12 months. 25% reported being usually or always worried about having enough money to pay housing costs. And 5% reported not currently having a regular and adequate place to sleep. According to the 2016 SES, 42% of CUNY students reported a household income of $19,999 or less. Opportunities for paid career opportunities provide critical financial, academic, and professional benefits for CUNY students who have too often been made to have to do with less. Students enrolled at CUNY to achieve upward mobility, including solid employment with good wages and benefits, and other financial struggles and or obligations that should not mean they cannot accept an internship because it is unpaid. Given that this year's graduating class will have to compete in many cases with 2020 graduates who are still seeking their first full-time job, as well as some who have lost their jobs due to the pandemic, it is essential for CUNY as the city's economic engine to ensure their students are not at a disadvantage in the job market upon graduation. This is a major reason why we chose to hold this hearing on the CUNY Service Corps and Cultural Corps. The CUNY Service Corps provides students with the opportunity to work on projects that improve the city's short and long-term civic, economic, and environmental sustainability, while gaining real work experience and getting paid. Projects include providing administrative support to hospital vice presidents, helping senior citizens to use technology effectively, designing promotional flyers to attract youth to a job training program, teaching children about animals in a zoo, promoting financial literacy among adults, and researching energy efficiency. Similarly, CUNY partnered with DCLA in the fall of 2016 to launch the CUNY Cultural Corps, modeled after the Service Corps, which creates comparable opportunities for CUNY students to work in the city's cultural sector. And one of the main intents of the Cultural Corps is to diversify cultural leadership in the city. I'm looking forward to learning more about these programs, their successes, and how they fared during the pandemic. Now, preparing for this hearing, I would like to thank Mr. Omowale Clay, my Chief of Staff, Ms. M. Indigo Washington, my Director of Legislation and CUNY Liaison, Amy Briggs, the committee's counsel, Chloe Rivera, the committee's Senior Policy Analyst, Michelle Peregrine, the city's Financial Analyst, and Frank Perez, the committee's Community Engagement Representative. Additionally, I want to thank the Sergeants at Arms who are working very hard behind the scenes to make this hearing possible. And at this time, I will turn it over to my co-chair, Councilmember James Van Bramer.
Thank you, Chair Farron, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to this joint oversight hearing with the Committee on Higher Education and our committee, the Committee on Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Intergroup Relations regarding the CUNY Cultural Corps and Service Corps. My name is Jimmy Van Bramer, and I'm proud to be the chair of this committee. And I want to thank my colleague, Chair Barron, for being such an incredible leader when it comes to CUNY and higher ed in our city. I want to start off by just, recognizing and acknowledging Commissioner Tom Finkel-Pearl, our former Department of Cultural Affairs Commissioner, who was very instrumental in creating the CUNY Cultural Corps. And I know it's something he's very proud of to this day. The Cultural Corps comes out of the Cultural Plan, a bill that Councilmember Steve Levin and I passed with the support of our colleagues that led to an exhaustive review process and ultimately led to the funding streams that were created that allow for us to fund the CUNY Cultural Corps, which could be a very, very important piece of our ecosystem when it comes to culture and the arts. So we're here today to get an updated overview of the very important program that I just spoke of. In today's job market, college graduates need more than just a degree to be competitive. They need the experience that for many, only an academic internship can provide. We also know the arts, and everyone knows, I believe, the arts are the most impactful way to affect social change, explore racial and ethnic representations, and reflect a community's history and identity while providing an opportunity to engage diverse audiences in transformational learning. We know that encouraging and supporting the arts and culture community is important because of its ability to amplify our diverse voices, which in turn enables creativity and problem solving in all areas. We also know that exposure to arts and culture helps both individuals and organizations produce better outcomes and results in their lives. While culturally diverse, Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ communities in New York City represent and provide important voices in the city's arts and cultural sector, we know that there continue to be numerous disparities and barriers to equity and equality. A recent DCLA study found that in New York City, staff at cultural institutions are on average 38% of people of color and 62% white non-Hispanic. In contrast, US Census data shows that 67% of New York City's population identifies as BIPOC and 33% white non-Hispanic. The data also reveals a disproportionate representation by pay grade and position, where positions such as curator were primarily held by individuals identifying as white, while jobs within cultural institutions with the fewest white workers were primarily in maintenance and security. Advocates and many others assert that the COVID-19 pandemic has made gender, racial, and economic disparities even worse. And research shows that BIPOC and immigrant serving arts organizations in New York City have been the hardest hit by the pandemic. Today, more than ever before, the CUNY Cultural Corps provides much needed opportunities for a diverse cross-section of students to experience work in all areas of the city's cultural sector, at museums, concert halls, zoos, and botanical gardens. At present, the internship connects students with paid positions in over 80 nonprofit cultural institutions across all artistic disciplines. An internship provides real-world experience and an exciting chance to be a part of the inner workings of a cultural organization. In this case, CUNY Cultural Corps provides students with what can be a transformational experience and an opportunity to gain entry into a world where they may not have otherwise been afforded. Of course, as Chair Barron mentioned, key here is that these are paid internships because many of these students are working and going to school and in some cases raising a family, and it's very, very important. I also think that today we're going to hear from the Department of Cultural Affairs, and I know that Commissioner Casales is unable to be with us today, but I see that yes, Deputy Commissioner Feinberg is with us and testifying, and we are certainly in appreciation of the commitment to CUNY Cultural Corps, which again stems from Commissioner Finkelpearl, and I know also is felt by Commissioner Casales. But want to hear from advocates and most importantly, the students themselves. And the proof of concept here will ultimately be if we're actually establishing the pipelines to leadership that is intended from the beginning here. We understand the disparities that exist. We must address them with urgency. And the CUNY Cultural Corps is about establishing and creating that pipeline, which will only be successful if these interns become paid staff members and then are included in a leadership track so that they are the future curators, artistic directors, executive directors, presidents, and CEOs of our amazing cultural organizations and institutions. So look forward to asking all those questions, learning more about it. But before I turn to our committee council to read the oath, I want to thank not only Chair Barron and her amazing team, but my staff, the Legislative Director Jack Bernadovitz, Chief of Staff Matt Wallace, our committee staff, Brenda McKinney, who we are only sending lots of love and support to right now, Christy Dwyer, our Legislative Policy Analyst, Alia Ali, our Principal Financial Analyst, and now I will turn it over to our hearing moderator, Amy Briggs.
Pardon. Thank you, Chairs Van Bramer and Chair Barron. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge Councilmember Mizell, who is also in attendance today. My name is Amy Briggs, and I serve as counsel to the Committee on Higher Education at the New York City Council. I will be moderating today's hearing and calling panelists to testify. Before we begin, please remember that everyone will be on mute until I call on you to testify. After you are called on, you will be unmuted by a member of our staff. Note that there will be a few second delay before you unmuted and we can hear you. For public testimony, we will call up individuals in panels. Please listen for your name. I will periodically announce the next few panelists. Once I call your name, a member of our staff will unmute you. The Sergeant at Arms will set a clock and give you the go-ahead to begin your testimony. All public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. After I call your name, please wait for the Sergeant at Arms to announce. So for today's hearing, the first panel will include representatives from CUNY and the Department of Cultural Affairs, followed by council member questions and then public testimony. For CUNY, we will have Lauren Anderson, University Dean of Industry and Talent Partnership, and Chelsea Pillow, who's an alumna of Hunter College and a Cultural Core participant. For DCLA, we will have Sheila Feinberg, Deputy Commissioner, and General Counsel of the DCLA, Pranita Raghavan. I will now administer the oath to the administration. When you hear your name, please respond once a member of our staff unmutes you. Please raise your hands for the administration of the oath. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before these committees and to respond honestly to council member questions? Dean Anderson?
I do.
Thank you. Chelsea Pillow?
I do.
Thank you. Sheila Feinberg?
I do.
And Pranita Raghavan?
I do.
Thank you very much. Dean Anderson, you may now begin your testimony.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairs Barron and Van Bramer, and members and staff of the Committees on Higher Education and Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Intergroup Relations. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony before you today on 2 programs at the City University of New York, CUNY Service Corps and CUNY Cultural Corps. My name is Lauren Anderson, and I am honored to serve as the University Dean of Industry and Talent Partnerships at CUNY, a position that I assumed 2 months ago in July of this year. In this capacity, I oversee the Office of Continuing Education and Workforce Partnerships, or CEWP, which was recently elevated to report directly to the Chancellor in addition to the Executive Vice Chancellor. This updated reporting structure is a reflection of the centrality of career success to the mission and day-to-day operations of the City University of New York. As our Chancellor often says, serving as a springboard for economic and social mobility is in our DNA at CUNY. To that end, our role at CEWP is first and foremost to ensure that current students and graduates of CUNY programs have the preparation, connections, and support needed to launch and advance in sustaining careers. And of course, as these committees know well, sustaining careers have become all the more critical in light of COVID-19, which disproportionately impacted many of the communities CUNY serves. 42%, as the chairperson said, of CUNY student body hails from homes that earn less than $20,000 annually. And for these students, their families, their communities, the ability to connect to resilient careers is in the best of times critical, and certainly now in the aftermath of the pandemic can be transformative. That is why CUNY colleges are making strides to ensure that individuals who come to our campuses with the hope of pursuing the career of their dreams leave on a path to economic prosperity thanks to deliberate policies, programs, and partnerships. And it's not just individuals who reap the benefits of these investments. As committee members are aware, employers across the 5 boroughs are struggling to find the talent and retain the workers they need to mount a full recovery. Nearly 88% of corporate leaders surveyed by PwC reported higher than usual turnover in their ranks, and the challenges restaurants face in securing workers has been well covered. CUNY's talent pipelines provide the qualified workers businesses need to stabilize operations and grow. The same can be said of our cultural institutions and nonprofit organizations. CUNY Service Corps and CUNY Cultural Corps are 2 programs with a rich history and multi-year track record of connecting students to paid work opportunities. Through these programs, CUNY supports students as they pursue their aspirations in civic and cultural careers while bolstering sectors that are vital to New York City's identity. I am so glad to be joined today by Chelsea Pillow, who's an alumni of CUNY Cultural Corps and a current government and legislative affairs assistant at El Museo del Barrio, who will offer a firsthand perspective on students' experience in the program. Before diving into details of how these programs are performing and how they fared during the pandemic, I just want to offer a few words of context, some of which have been mentioned already. Service Corps was founded in 2013 on the heels of Hurricane Sandy and provides a pipeline of diverse qualified talent for the city's community-based organizations, nonprofit institutions, and government agencies. In 8 years, it has provided thousands of CUNY students with paid work experiences on projects that improve short and long-term civic, economic, and environmental sustainability of New York City. The program has two main goals and aims to achieve them. For students to make a meaningful difference through internships in New York City's nonprofits and community-based organizations while gaining valuable real-world experience, a wage, and where appropriate, academic credit. For residents, communities, and project partners to realize concrete benefits as a result of CUNY Service Corps projects. It does so through student internship placements that are approximately 10 to 12 hours per week over fall and spring semesters for a total of 24 weeks at a pay rate of between $15 and $17 an hour. Interns have the opportunity to work on initiatives, many of which Chair Barron mentioned examples of, that include community and public health, green infrastructure and resiliency, education of both children and adults, and economic development. Service Corps projects prepare students for success throughout their college experience and transition into careers by making meaningful links between internship placements and college coursework, fostering structured reflection amongst participants to help students recognize and articulate transferable skills in the workplace, and offering students valuable work experience and exposure to careers. Students in the program also benefit from one-on-one advisement from their campus-based managers, pre-service training, ongoing monthly trainings, special program events, and peer-to-peer support from other Corps members. Examples of organizations that have partnered with Service Corps include the 9/11 Memorial Museum, Brooklyn Navy Yard, Federal Reserve Bank of New York Presbyterian Hospital, Queens Botanical Garden, and as was mentioned, Wildlife Conservation Society city zoos across the city. The online application to be a host organization is open to nonprofit and government agencies. Applications are evaluated to confirm that organizations will provide a meaningful experience for students that builds professional skills and isn't limited to basic administrative roles. Service Corps then works with host sites to provide ongoing support and assistance to help student development. Most host organizations in the current program are returning partners and have come back to work with CUNY year after year. Since 2013, 8 campuses have participated in Service Corps, though today the program is open to 5. 2 community colleges, Hostos and LaGuardia, 2 senior colleges, John Jay and Queens, and 1 comprehensive college, City Tech. Modeled after Service Corps, CUNY Cultural Corps was established in 2016, as has been mentioned, by CUNY, the NYC Department of Cultural Affairs, and the Rockefeller Foundation in response to the report that has been noted previously. Since then, the program has connected over 800 CUNY students to part-time professional learning experiences during the academic year in arts and cultural organizations throughout the city. Culture Corps students earn $15 an hour and can work up to 12 hours per week. Host organizations that participate in CUNY Cultural Corps include the Met, Harlem Stage, Museum of the Moving Image, El Museo del Barrio, the Jewish Museum, New York City Ballet, and Tenement Museum. Similar to Service Corps, the application to be a host site is open and available online. All partners must provide evidence of their being able to supervise and provide a meaningful professional development experience for each intern. Unlike Service Corps, students from any college are able and eligible to participate in the program. Over the past 3 years, interns from 23 campuses have taken part. Cultural Corps is made possible through not only the generous support of DCLA, but also the Rockefeller Foundation, and as of 2 years ago, BNY Mellon Foundation. At their core, both of these programs aim to create pathways to careers in critical sectors with an emphasis on recruiting participants who reflect the demographics of CUNY and New York City overall in terms of socioeconomic, ethnic, and racial diversity. Outreach to students is conducted through multiple channels and formats, including emails, social media, faculty and staff engagement, information sessions, and prior to the pandemic, many on-campus activities. In the last 3 years, 22% of Cultural Corps participants have identified as Black or African American, 22% white, 26% Asian Pacific Islander, 1% American Indian, and 4% multiracial. 33 identify as Hispanic or Latinx. The remaining participants who do not add up in these numbers selected other or chose not to respond. This representation more or less mirrors CUNY's overall student body and exceeds the representation of Latinx and Asian communities when compared to the city's overall population. Similarly, in the most recent year of available data, Service Corps had 29% of participants identifying as Black or African American, 9 identified as white, 25 identified as Asian, and 34 identified as Latinx. Service Corps participants are over 40% first-generation college students, over 40% non-native English speakers, and over 50% from low-income households, near on par and exceeding a bit the overall CUNY student body demographics. COVID-19 pandemic took a tremendous toll on CUNY Service Corps and Cultural Corps. In addition to the pervasive challenges caused by rapid closure of in-person activity, CUNY's 20% mandatory budget reduction shaped the fiscal reality that surrounded these programs. The impact of the pandemic was obviously felt by partner organizations as well, who were faced with the difficult decision of canceling or reducing their commitments. 40 of the 105 Cultural Corps interns during the 2019-2020 session had their internships suspended as Cultural Corps institutions were unable to continue hosting the interns in light of stay-at-home directives. In 2020, 90% of the Cultural Corps internships were offered remotely, with roughly 20 students continuing in-person placements. However, the ability to pivot online for Cultural Corps programming proved a remarkable silver lining for cultural institutions themselves. When COVID-19 forced many partner organizations to close their doors and in many cases lay off employees, talent sourced and supported by Cultural Corps allowed these institutions to continue to serve New Yorkers and its communities, even from their own homes. As a result, students and partners recommended the Cultural Corps to peers, as it was one of the only programs that continued to operate during the pandemic remotely. In large part, due to this increased demand, Cultural Corps will be expanding this coming year. The new remote environment also allowed program staff the flexibility to offer more professional development programming as students could join from their respective locations across the 5 boroughs. In 2021-22, this current academic year, Cultural Corps will continue to take advantage of these remote offerings and will be offering a hybrid system to meet employer needs. 68, or about a third of Cultural Corps interns this year, are entirely remote, and the remainder will be in-person or hybrid. Similarly, Service Corps was able to pivot 100% of its 2019-2020 internships to a remote setting, allowing students to continue to offer critical capacity to nonprofit partners. 2021, faced with significant budget constraints, the program took an innovative leap and transitioned the CUNY Service Corps model to one primarily supported by federal work study funding with additional philanthropic support. Building on CUNY's recent expansion of work study under Federal Experimental Site Authority, Service Corps realigned its target population to serve students eligible for this form of financial aid. At the same time, the program scaled back its reach to about 250 students a year. This transition will allow Service Corps to take advantage of a long-term sustainable funding stream and has the added benefit of reaching students with explicit financial need through additional channels, for example, financial aid offices. This transition hasn't been without bumps. The limitation of eligibility criteria to work study eligible students has significantly shrunk the applicant pool. In partnership with Offices of Financial Aid, the CEWP team is continuing to explore reasons why eligible students may not be aware of or take full advantage of the available work study packages. With the start of the school year, another cycle of both CUNY Cultural Corps and Service Corps are now underway. The changes made to these programs during the COVID pandemic will allow us to continue to move forward on a more sustainable path. As we do so, we'll be laser focused on ways to continue and improve and evolve these programs. This includes taking steps to further strengthen the transition to careers in these critical fields following program participation, removing unnecessary barriers to student participation, looking for additional opportunities to extend internships into the summer, which they do not currently operate under except for this past year, and improving long-term tracking of alumni outcomes. To that point I just made, in the summer of 2021, both CUNY Cultural Corps and Service Corps partnered with the CUNY Recovery Corps, which was a summer internship program that was run under the Summer Youth Employment Program. With support from the Center for Youth Employment and DYCD, nearly 140 CUNY Corps participants were able to extend their academic year internship for an additional 6 weeks into the summer. This proved to be a meaningful opportunity for Cultural Corps interns and one that we hope to continue to explore in the future. We look forward to working with the City Council and City to identify additional opportunities to bolster these pipelines to vital careers across the 5 boroughs in the months and years to come. Thank you for this opportunity to provide an update on where we are. As a public institution, we're accountable to the citizens of New York, to you, their leaders, and to CUNY students who turn to us for first-rate education that will propel them towards economic prosperity. We appreciate the chance to appear before you today. And now, if it's possible, I'd like to take a moment to hand over the floor to Chelsea Palat, a CUNY Cultural Corps alumni who will share her experience. And after that, I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Chelsea Palat, you may begin your testimony.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Palat. I am a recent graduate of Hunter College, where I received my bachelor's degree in sociology. I'm also an alum of the CUNY Cultural Corps program, where I had the opportunity to intern at El Museo del Barrio. CUNY Cultural Corps has changed my life and the trajectory of my career. I returned to Hunter College to pursue my sociology degree with no clear path for my future. I had already obtained a degree in music, and I had a passion for community affairs, yet I couldn't figure out how to combine the two. Prior to CUNY Cultural Corps, I had never heard of the arts and culture sector. I didn't know that it was the perfect amalgamation of my two interests and a viable career option for me. From the very beginning of my internship in the Government and Community Affairs Department at El Museo, my supervisor, Ana Chireno, clearly communicated with me that she wanted to craft my intern experience to my interests and the areas in which I wanted to learn. Soon, I was drafting letters to local government officials, communicating with community members, and crafting synopses to be shared across departments at El Museo. One of the projects I'm most grateful to have worked on was El Museo's annual Three Kings Day celebration. Seeing the entire planning process through to the final day of the festivities and the overwhelmingly positive and even emotional community response to the celebration was one of the most rewarding experiences of my internship. Being a part of this project made me realize that the immense social impact that working in arts and culture can have, and further solidified my decision to pursue a profession in this field. At the end of my 5 months as a CUNY Cultural Corps intern, El Museo del Barrio hired me as the Government and Community Affairs Assistant. As a Puerto Rican and New York City native, it has been a dream come true to work at El Museo del Barrio, a cultural institution founded by Puerto Rican artists specifically to uplift and create space for the Latinx community of New York City. Additionally, as a disabled person, having the opportunity to work remotely made this internship program more accessible than it would have ever been in person. CUNY Cultural Corps transitioning to a fully remote program allowed for me to confidently apply and participate, knowing that a lack of accessibility and disability accommodations would not be a hindrance to my ability to excel. I began my internship unsure of what to expect, but incredibly excited, hopeful, and eager to learn, and I ended the program with quite literally the best possible outcome. In closing, I'm eternally grateful to have had such a transformative opportunity. Without CUNY Cultural Corps, I would not be successfully pursuing my career in the field of arts and culture today. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Chelsea. Sheila Feinberg, you may now begin your testimony.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Barron and Chair Van Bramer, members of the committees. I am Department of Cultural Affairs Deputy Commissioner Sheila Feinberg, and I'm here to testify in regards to today's topic, the CUNY Cultural Corps and Service Corps. And I'm joined today by our DCLA General Counsel, Pranita Raghavan. And I just want to start off by saying, I have a whole thing prepared. I'm going to read it, but I just want to take a moment and just say how great it was to hear from our colleagues at CUNY. I'm moved, and I hope that others are as well. I was really impressed with that. So anyway, that said, I will continue now. New York City's cultural community is a tremendous source of civic pride and social strength, of economic value, of jobs, of inspiration, of uplift. It's what defines us to the world in many ways. That's why it's so important that our cultural community reflects the dynamic, diverse residents it serves, and why, under the de Blasio administration, the Department of Cultural Affairs has pushed diversity, equity, and inclusion to the top of the agenda in our cultural sector. In 2016, we released results of a landmark demographic survey of New York City's cultural workforce. The results, while not entirely surprising, were startling. In a city where 66% of residents identify as people of color, just 33% of the workforce did the same. The survey was an urgent call to action for our many partners in the cultural sector. As a first step, we immediately committed to funding a pipeline for more diverse candidates into positions in the cultural sector. When it comes to accessing a diverse pool of talent in New York City, the CUNY student body is an unparalleled resource. So working with our incredible partners at CUNY, we helped launch the Cultural Core the same year we published the survey results in 2016. Since the start of the program in 2016, more than 850 students have participated in the program. In the 2019-2020 academic year, more than 200 core members working at 87 host sites provided over 46,000 work hours. In a survey CUNY conducted of Cultural Core alumni, half of respondents reported having another internship or job, with a significant number of those jobs in the cultural sector. Note that not all core members are seniors when they take part in the program and may still be enrolled in school once their Cultural Core tenure is finished. After launching with interns placed in the 33 institutions on city-owned property in the Cultural Institutions Group, now more than 85 organizations in every borough, size, and discipline host Cultural Core members. Students working in larger institutions are exposed to how some of the largest cultural organizations in the world put on major performances and exhibitions. Students in smaller groups become crucial members of the team and are immersed in their operations. Beyond the direct value of this program to the students and host organizations, it was important to help shift expectations of payment for introductory work too. For too long, unpaid internships have been the norm in many industries. This practice often bars lower income people who can't afford to work for free from important entry-level experience. By paying students $15 an hour, CUNY Cultural Core demonstrates that training is work and work at all levels deserves fair compensation. We also want the students to understand that working in culture can provide a good, meaningful job in a variety of disciplines, from programming and curation to finance and communications, and even intergovernmental affairs. In addition to CUNY's leadership and partnership, a number of partners from private philanthropy, including Rockefeller Foundation and Mellon Foundation, have stepped up to invest in and expand the program's offerings. This demonstrates recognition of the urgency and value of CUNY Cultural Core mission, and we thank these partners for helping sustain and grow the program. There are legitimate concerns that the layoffs and furloughs caused by the pandemic have set the sector back in terms of staff diversity. We believe it's more urgent than ever to foreground this work, particularly in light of COVID's disproportionate impacts on communities of color. We were thrilled and inspired that CUNY and the cultural host sites found a way to keep the core up and running throughout the pandemic. In the past academic year, 95% of core members completed their internships, helping to ensure that this pipeline and the partnerships and connections it fosters remain strong. Qualitative surveys continue to find enormous levels of support from the program, from students. One recent participant reported after their internship, "This program has given me an opportunity to break into the art world that I otherwise would not have. It's given me immense perspective in what I want to do with my life. But more importantly, through my relationships with my supervisors, it has shown me the type of professional I want to be as well." The cultural groups who host CUNY Cultural Core members also find their organizations transformed by the talent, energy, and perspectives they bring to their roles. In another CUNY survey, a recent host organization reported that during COVID, the fact that our organization did not just survive, but that we thrived and met unprecedented challenges with innovative solutions is in large part thanks to our CUNY Cultural Core team. We believe that this program is helping to create the next generation of talent and leadership for our city's cultural organizations. We are grateful to CUNY, our cultural partners, and funding partners for their ongoing support of the program. And we give a huge shout out to all the CUNY Cultural Core members, present, past, and future, whose energy and talent and intelligence are the lifeblood of the program. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to field any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Deputy Commissioner Feinberg. Before we go into the next witness, I would like to acknowledge Majority Leader Cumbo and Councilmember Jonai for joining us today. And General Counsel Pranita Raghavan, you may now begin your testimony.
I don't have extra testimony. Yeah, thank you.
right,
Deputy
well,
Commissioner Feinberg did our testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we will now turn to questions. Before I turn over to Chairs Barron and Van Bramer, I would like to remind council members to use the raise hand function in Zoom to indicate they have a question for this panel. Chair Barron, you may now begin with your questions. Pardon, Chair, you're muted.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to thank the panelists for coming and for sharing their experiences and sharing the information. Dean Anderson, welcome. New to the CUNY family, but we're glad to have you. You're serving such an important function. We've got lots of questions, and I wanted to find out, in terms of the CUNY Service Corps, what's the total number? Do we have that total number of students who've been a part of that corps since its inception?
It is over 5,000. We can get you the total number afterward.
Oh, it's over 5,000. Okay, and what is the average size of a cohort?
It has changed over the course of the history of the program. It used to be someplace between 600 and 800 students. Now it is closer to 300. And that is a reflection of the fact that for many years, CUNY operated the Service Corps. Sorry, did you ask about Service Corps or Cultural Corps? Just
Service Corps.
Service Corps, right. So for many years, we operated Service Corps out of our operational budget without any allocation from the city or state for this purpose. And in 2018, that became very hard to sustain. And so we had to reduce the size of the program in 2018 to 5 colleges, down from 8. And since we have switched over to federal work study, we are excited to see if that can be a long-term sustainable stream, because there's a chance we might be able to grow that again, but we're really looking to see how that happens this year, since that change just happened in the last academic year.
So the reason that it went from 5 campuses down to 8 was simply based on the finances?
That's right. Additionally, when we went down from 8 to 5 schools, there was a reevaluation of schools based on criteria that had to do with enrollment and retention and program completion rates. And so when we selected the new schools, several schools were not selected because they did not meet the same standards on those criteria.
So were all of the schools required to have pre-serve? Did they all have the same requirements and they didn't meet them adequately? I know you talked about pre-service, you talked about one-to-one advisement, you talked about peer arrangements. Were those in place throughout the time of the Service Corps? Or did you institute them at some point after you saw that there was some need?
So the program has always been about more than just placement, about supporting students throughout the process. The exact interventions have evolved over time, and I don't know exactly which year they were introduced, but it has been an evolution.
Okay, so what is the requirement of the partner organization? I heard you say that it's online, the application to become a host. So what are those requirements?
Absolutely. So our partner organizations, we deliberately keep it open so that partner organizations who would like to benefit from the service, who see the need in these talent pipelines, have the ability to apply. So we don't limit application. But when we are evaluating applications, what we look for is that the host organizations are committed to providing projects that are going to actually contribute to student professional development, that they have on-campus or on-site supervisor who's able to help oversee and offer assistance to students. And those are really the 2 things that we look for, whether it's Service Corps or it's Cultural Corps in our host institutions. We also tend to prioritize for Service Corps or host institutions that can take 5 students or more.
That can take 5 students. Oh, so, okay, you try to have a group of students placed. That was a question I wanted to ask. Do you have groups of students at each, or are there instances where one student is at a host by themselves without any other students there, or is that something you try to avoid?
We do prioritize having multiple students at one location. It adds a peer network and support and confidence. There may be instances where we do only have one student, though. Happy to get back to you on the scale of that.
And then are students encouraged to apply to future cohorts if they are not accepted into the program at the time that they first want to enter?
If they meet all of the eligibility requirements for the program and aren't deemed ineligible, then yes.
And in your testimony, you spoke about having an arrangement now based with the work study from the federal government. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So federal work study is a financial aid, a formula-based financial aid program that the Department of Education oversees at the federal level. And it is offered to students oftentimes as part of a full financial aid package. So it is not available to every student that qualifies for financial aid. It is available to some that meet specific requirements. And then CUNY additionally put some requirements around which students that qualify for financial aid also qualify for federal work study.
And so talking about the financials, between cohorts 1 and 4, the Jewish Foundation for Education for Women Service Corps program provided an extended full-time summer placement for students who completed the Service Corps. Can you describe the nature of this partnership and how many students benefited from the program?
You know, I don't believe that I have the specific information on that partnership, but again, happy to get it for you afterward.
Okay, very good. As I'm trying to negotiate and get back to my other screen, I just need a second for you to be a little patient.
Sure.
I think what I'll do is I'll defer to my co-chair while I try to find my other screen of questions. And Amy, if when he's finished, you would allow me to come back, I'd appreciate it.
Not a problem. Chair Van Bramer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Barron, and thank you to everyone who has spoken so far. So I am, of course, interested in the long-term success of the Cultural Core. And I think that it's great that we've had over 850 individuals, 87 institutions participating. But I don't know who can answer this best, but whoever wants to chime in. So, and Chelsea's story is powerful and a great success story. But how do we continue this program over the long term to make sure that there's accountability, that we're measuring success, not just in terms of how many young people become interns with the CUNY Corps, which is great, but how many, like Chelsea, are offered positions, and then ultimately not just offered positions, but that there is a path to leadership for Chelsea and others, right? That we're actually doing what the program was intended to do at its very, very beginnings when I was there with Commissioner Finkelpearl, and that is to use this as a way to deal with the disparities that exist at the top echelons of leadership of cultural institutions.
I'm happy to take a first stab, and then Deputy Commissioner, if you'd like to hop in, please feel free.
Sure.
This is a terrific question. And as I mentioned in the testimony provided, we have several priorities moving forward, one of which is to strengthen those connections to postgraduate career outcomes, another of which is to measure them more holistically. Prior to the pandemic, we had done some informal surveys of student outcomes that have led to some of the data points that you have heard about, and have continued to do that informally through 2020. We would like to systematize that. And when I came on board 2 months ago, we started the conversations about how do we get a more holistic and consistent measurement of the impact of these programs, both of them actually. We have not to date set up that process yet, but that is absolutely a priority for us. Additionally, it is really critical that we continue to look for, target, and recruit organizations that are committed to bringing on talent, not just hosting talent, who see talent as not just an intern for a short period of time, but someone they actually want to join their workforce. And we are excited to do even more based on the successes we've had with El Museo del Barrio and other partners, to be able to understand better how that transition has worked, where there have been challenges, where there are advantages, and use that as we bring employer partners on board to be able to do that work.
Deputy Commissioner, did you want to add from the Department of Cultural Affairs?
I think Lauren covered it really well. I mean, I guess the only thing I would add is that we have to continue to do the interviews and the evaluations and make sure that everyone's getting a good positive experience that we're talking about right now, but that sustains throughout time so that it helps. Again, word of mouth is such a big thing, right? Whenever you're on the job market and whenever you're an intern, you're trying to think about where do you go next? Like, word of mouth is a really big piece of that too. So I think just working again with our partners at CUNY to help with the evaluation piece as well.
So, Deputy Commissioner, what is the communication with the cultural organizations or institutions themselves about how we measure the long-term success of the program? CUNY, certainly is wed to the success long-term of the program, and I understand how they're attempting to manage the program and gauge its success. But DCLA has, of course, a unique relationship with all of our cultural organizations and institutions. And how are you, managing it? How are you measuring it? How are you communicating with the cultural institutions and organizations themselves about the expectation that this is going to be more than just an internship program, and it really is a pipeline to leadership?
So that's a great question. Thank you for it. I want to get back to you on the specific answers on your question. I would say at a broad brush stroke, we have made that institutional commitment and we've shared that with our cultural partners in the sector. So they are well aware of our commitment behind it, both our funding commitment and also to the extent that we partner with CUNY to help with the process, that commitment as well. I think a lot of it, as we were saying earlier on, this is just one thing that we're doing in our overall exhaustive work on DEI. I think the message has come out loud and clear to the sector that this administration, that this agency is committed to DEI work in the cultural sector at all levels, whether it's an intern, a senior board appointment, and even the president and the CEO of our arts organization. So that has come through loud and clear. And also our partners have grown since we started the program, and I can give you the actual numbers of that after this.
Yes, thank you. I know that it's growing, and that's a very, very good thing. We've also got to protect the funding for this program, which obviously we've been terrifically invested in for several years now. So, as someone who was not lucky enough to be an intern when I was in college, but who had less than no money when I was in college, and worked and struggled to literally pay the tuition. I'm wondering what we do for folks who do run into issues, and are there ways that we help young people in the program who might actually run into financial difficulty? And the worst thing, of course, is to realize back in the day we would wait outside for hours at the bursar's office and try and get loans and relief when it came time to paying the tuition, at least folks in my position. And the worst thing would be for folks to be denied an internship here in this program because somehow they were in arrears, or they weren't able to make it financially. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but like, how do we help folks stay in the program, stay in CUNY, who are really the most marginal, who are really struggling, right, financially?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, these are both paid programs. We have had partners in the past that want to offer academic credit, and we say no, because only academic credit, no payment, because that is an essential piece of being able to take advantage of these opportunities, is not having to make a trade-off between taking a job that pays your rent and taking a job that can increase your career path and professional development. So one, all of these opportunities are paid, as you know. Two, CUNY more broadly, especially recently over the last couple of years, has launched a number of efforts, from the emergency fund for students during the pandemic to the recent CUNY comeback program that helps cancel out debt that students might have or fees that they might owe. Additionally, this next round of CUNY comeback targets students who have paid their bill in full but have additional economic challenges. So they are eligible for this most recent round, and we're happy to provide you with more information on those programs. We within Service Corps and Cultural Corps make sure that we're making the link to those programs with students who experience financial hardship, rather than offering something specific through our own programs.
Great, that's exactly what I was talking about, because as you know, there are students who are working and or have paid internships who still can't make the tuition, right? And it's very, very difficult to make that along with their families. So thank you for that. I do want to acknowledge Councilmember James Gennaro is with us in the hearing. Thank you to Council Member Gennaro. And the Department of Cultural Affairs, Deputy Commissioner, the data that we have so far, right? So we've had this program in existence for 5 years or so. And I realize that there's a wide range of seniors, sophomores, juniors, and freshmen participating. But what data do we have so far on the number of folks who've actually been like Chelsea, wonderful success stories, who have been offered full-time permanent positions in cultural organizations?
If you're trying to unmute. Okay, I'm happy to just speak to that briefly. So Deputy Commissioner referenced a survey that we have done most recently that surveyed the current Cultural Corps members to understand how many alumni, to understand how many were employed. Of that, 50% were employed. We are needing to do more thorough surveying and analysis of our student outcomes to be able to tell you exactly how many continued on in an organization or how many are now in a different position within the cultural sector, to be able to get that to you with more specificity. On the Service Corps side, which I know is not what you're asking about, we generally see that up to 25% of the students stay on at their institutions that have posted them, many in paid capacities.
Thank you, Dean Anderson. So when you say 50% of CUNY Cultural Corps graduates, if you will, are employed, is that 50% have found employment in the cultural sector, or just 50% have found permanent employment?
That is 50% have found employment. And I do want to make just a little note about permanent employment. Many of the students who participate in these programs, as the Deputy Commissioner mentioned, are still students. They are still enrolled, still going to work. So there is additional analysis to be done to even understand who would qualify however many semesters out for a full-time position.
Yep. Totally fair, I guess, and I'll throw it back to Chair Barron, of course. But my last point is I guess what I'm trying to get is, and I realize you may not have all this data, but we do need to start having the data to convince folks that it's working and deserves to be not only continually funded, but maybe have the funding increased and the program expanded. So the question is how many have found work, full-time employment in the cultural sector? Of that 50% total, which is all sectors, I take it, what is our success rate? And you know what I'm getting at, right? Like, and I believe in the cultural sector. I believe in all of our cultural organizations. And I know Elise is going to be testifying for a great one, and everyone wants and believes in the DEI mission, but we also have to have metrics associated with this and accountability. So is there a way to drill down into what percentage have found full-time employment at cultural institutions, organizations, which of course is the very heart and soul of the cultural core?
Yeah, so I completely understand what you're asking for. At this moment, and again, apologies, Deputy Commissioner, for speaking over you. We do not have precisely what you're looking for, but can follow up. Deputy Commissioner, anything you wish to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say we can. We'll follow up with you and your office to give you the exact data that you're requesting. And I understand why you're asking for it. It makes a lot of sense. And myself, I tend to always look at data as well. So I think it's really good to help, again, bolster the argument for why this is a great program and why it needs to continue for years to come.
Great. Chair Barron?
Yes, thank you. Am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for your testimony. And I have a question for Ms. Palat. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name properly.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. Your testimony was very inspiring, and I could hear the enthusiasm and sort of like the epiphany that this is what I want to do. I found it. Did you find this as a graduate student? Is that when you came to find out about the Service Corps?
No, I returned to Hunter to get a second bachelor's degree because I had gotten a music degree a few years earlier, and for about 3-4 years, I didn't know what my career path was going to be, just because I didn't know that there were more options in the arts other than performance-based careers or education-based careers. I didn't know if there was more than that, and that led me to just kind of wanting to return back to school. So I returned back to school in the beginning of 2020, and throughout my time in school, that's when I discovered the Cultural Corps. In the middle of the pandemic was when I discovered it through a Hunter newsletter.
So you found out about it in a new. I was trying to find out how
Yes.
it is that you found out about it.
Yes, it was through a Hunter newsletter.
I'm always excited to know that there's an outreach that's effective and really letting the students know about the positive. Not that we can provide placements for all of the students that might be interested to do it, but really to be able to at least make them informed, have them be informed that this is an opportunity that they can pursue. So other than the newsletter, had you seen other kinds of advertisements, or did you get it in your email from Hunter or from CUNY? Was there an alert, or how? Pay attention to this. Did you have any of that, or is it just with that newsletter article?
Well, I definitely was seeking opportunities. I already knew that I was trying to graduate within a year and a half or so. So I was looking for my next step. I just didn't know exactly what that was going to be. So I was casting a wide net pretty much. And I signed up for a few different opportunities through Hunter's Office of the Arts. I believe that was one of the avenues that I discovered that they would send frequent updates on internship opportunities or job opportunities.
Okay.
I signed up for the general CUNY emails. I think the internship office. I know they also have like a job board, an internship board, so that you can see the frequent updates on what opportunities were out there. And those were kind of the avenues that I found Cultural Corps.
Okay, thank you. And then a general question for Dean Anderson. The list of criteria cites a grade point of 2.5. Are there exceptions that are made, or must a student really have a hard 2.5? And is there an opportunity, let's say we have a student who had college credits that they earned while they were in high school. We had the early college program. So if there's a student who has college credits that they're bringing in as a freshman, would they have an opportunity to apply to participate, or do you generally wait to make sure that it's been a student who's already been in the college campus setting and then can move on to that?
Sure. 2.5 is generally the rule. Occasionally, we have had exceptions if a faculty member vouches for the student, but that is generally what we aim at. In terms of credits and standing, in general, we prefer that students have at least a year's worth of experience with credits on campus. Again, there have been some exceptions made, but those are the ideal criteria.
And the Chair Van Bramer talked about the goals of the program and talking about cultural diversity and making sure that there's a path that leads to positions that are higher up in leadership, curators at museums and such. So the list of criteria says that they have to start their placements at their sites and they must participate in professional development training program. Can you talk a little bit about how that professional development training program helps to define exactly what we're talking about when we say cultural diversity?
That is a great question, and I'm going to have to get back to you on the curriculum of the professional development offerings that we run. We do, as I mentioned before, have workshops that are focused around professional development. We have peer mentors that help with professional development, but I'm going to have to get back to you on the curriculum as to how it specifically addresses that issue.
Great. I would be very interested in knowing how that works and how it's presented and who are the people and what are the preparations and what are their qualifications for doing that professional development. We particularly in CUNY, or there are other outreaches and other agencies and other people that do that. Moving on, there are many times that students work more than one job. And we know that students, part of the requirement, I think, is that the student must be enrolled for at least 12 credits. Is that a part of your requirement? I think I saw that, to be able to be eligible. I think I saw that in the briefing material.
Yes, they must be registered for 12 credits.
Okay, but we know that students really have a lot of responsibilities, and many of them are parents and have to make provisions. And this particular opportunity to have an internship is great. It's in their field, it's giving them that experience. But there may also be the challenge that the student may face of having another part-time job. So are there provisions made that will allow them to be flexible in the hours that they would work, or is the whole cohort that you talked about expected to work the same hours in the same schedule?
Students commit to working between 10 and 12 hours a week, and
Right.
Service Corps, they make a year-long commitment. But the schedules are dependent on host sites. So on a host site by host site basis, those kinds of accommodations might be allowed.
And what is the percentage of students that successfully complete the program, who are able to do the whole year, do the 10 to 12 hours? We know there are lots of other contingencies that come in, things that impact the student's commitment. But what's the percentage of students that actually are able to complete the program?
That is a great question. Again, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Okay. And what kind of additional support is there for students to be able to get counseling, or to be able to say, listen, I'm at a critical point here and I need to try to make 4 hours this week and add the additional hours? Or is that capability available? And is there a support system for them to be able to do that?
So the way we approach connections of internships to placements is definitely not just put a student in a placement and hope that all goes well. Our team and our staff and campus staff offer support to students to ensure that they are able to navigate on a day-to-day basis. In terms of negotiation and flexibility, obviously that is a conversation that happens with the host site in addition to staff. So a student is not negotiating directly with staff on those. But we do have staff available who work with students directly to be able to address any issues like that come up.
Great.
And
then, yes, go ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Just to get back to your earlier question, we have about 80 to 90% completion of those Service Corps opportunities.
Oh, great. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then my colleague asked questions about longevity and tracking and finding out how students are moving forward and what actually on some of the achievements that they make. So do we disaggregate this data by more than just race and ethnicity? Do we do districts or borough or zip codes or age or areas of study?
We do many of those things. We do borough, we do age, we do income level, and gender are the fields that I think you, in addition to what you mentioned. So yes, we do disaggregate by that.
And is there an exit survey for students to be able to share what their experiences have been or to make suggestions about ways to improve what has been their experience as an intern?
Yes, we do survey students in the program and after the program.
Okay, great. I'd love to be able to see what some of those comments are and how they help to shape changes for the program moving forward. And finally, what are the financials? What are we looking at? What's the expectation? What's the need? How can we look at our budget and see how we can put more money into this type of program, which is very successful? I did hear you talk about the federal work study and trying to negotiate that moving forward. But with how many students apply but are not selected because there's just not enough room?
So that has varied by year. This year, when it comes to federal work study, we actually have a little bit of the opposite problem, which is the limitation to federal work study changed our eligibility pool pretty considerably. So right now, recruitment is open, it is ongoing. We have many open slots, are not running into the challenge of qualified students who meet the requirements being able to get matched.
And you spoke about the pandemic and the need to, some of your partners, I think you said there were only 40 out of 105 that were able to maintain the internship program in 2019?
So 40 of the 105 had their internships suspended, meaning that the cultural institutions that they were at were not able to continue to host them. However, 34 of those 40 whose internships were cut, we actually wound up being able to reallocate towards work on Cultural Core itself, professional development, staffing, offering. So all of those students, the 34 actually did wind up having a paid experience.
And what has been the return rate of the 105? What's the number for this year?
The number for this year is still in flux. We have 215 right now, but we are still interviewing a few additional ones to see if that number will grow.
Great, okay. And what are the other expenses that CUNY or DCLA are incurring regarding this program?
From CUNY's perspective, we are continuing to support Service Corps through our operating budget in part to the tune of about $300,000. And that is, again, not an allocation from the state, not an allocation from the city, just dollars we are finding because we believe this has benefit to students. Mm-hmm. So that is still a requirement. We've had many very helpful, successful foundation partners who have seen the benefit of this program and this year have stepped up to the tune of about $600,000 to be able to support Service Corps. But we are hoping this year to double down on figuring out why more students are not taking advantage of their federal work study package, because if we can figure out those challenges, then the pool of potential funding is actually much larger than the students we have right now. And so we're hoping that will be a way for growth in this program.
Just to add, for DCLA, our funding has increased between fiscal year 17 and fiscal year 22. We have increased our own funding for this program. I also wanted to get back, I think there was a question earlier on about the completion rate for Cultural Core, and I just wanted to chime in and say that we have a 95.12%, not quite sure where the 12 comes from, but we're 95.12% completion rate with the CUNY Culture Core for the last academic cycle, 2021.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Amy. I've concluded the questions that I wanted to have.
Thank you, Chair. To the other council members who are present, if you would like to ask a question and you have not yet, please use the raised hand function in Zoom. And please remember to keep questions and answers to 5 minutes. I will take a moment to let anyone raise their hand. And seeing no other raised hands, Chairs Barron and Van Bramer, if you'd like to ask additional questions to the administration, the floor is yours for those.
My questions have been answered, and if there were any other burning questions that come up, I will ask that the council would send them to you.
Thank you. Same for you, Chair Van Bramer?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have now concluded the administration's testimony, and we will now turn to public testimony. First, I'd like to remind everyone that I will call up individuals in panels. Once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and you may begin your testimony once the Sergeant at Arms sets the clock and gives you the cue. All testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. Remember that there is a few seconds delay when you're unmuted before we can hear you. And please wait for the Sergeant at Arms to announce that you may begin before starting your testimony. The first panel of public testimony in order of speaking will be Alejandra Martinez from Young Invincibles, Lisa Nishimura from Young Invincibles, Moju Baola Olofunke Okome from CUNY University Faculty and Senate, and Elise Buxbaum from the Museum of Jewish Heritage. I will now call on Alejandro Martinez to testify.
Time starts now.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Alejandra Martinez, and I'm a recent graduate from John Jay College, where I double majored in sociology and criminal justice. I'm also a newly hired outreach specialist for Young Invincibles. I want to thank the New York City Council, the Committee on Higher Education, the Committee on Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Intergroup Relations for the opportunity to testify at today's hearing. Today, I'm here to testify on behalf of CUNY Service Corps and speak upon its importance in CUNY colleges. As a newly transferred student from BMCC, I was looking for an opportunity to grow professionally while also staying on track with my upcoming graduation date. As a CUNY student, I was constantly surrounded by young, ambitious students who wanted to succeed in the real world, and to no surprise, internships and fellowships were seen as a valuable tool to get there. I made sure that throughout my college career, I kept my grades up while also doing internships and building real-life connections. In my senior year at John Jay, I was made aware of CUNY Service Corps and their message of creating a healthier, more resilient, and better educated city. As a woman of color, I felt connected by CUNY Service Corps' mission of representing both opportunity and need through the means of service. After being notified of my acceptance, CUNY Service Corps aligned me with an organization that met my views and whose values I felt gravitated towards. This organization was Young Invincibles, whose mission is to amplify the voices of young adults in the political process. As a sociology major, I felt in place with an organization who values the voices of my generation, especially when it comes to social aspects that affect our futures, such as education, healthcare, and workforces. I spent a semester getting to work on data projects, outreach engagement projects, and writing formal reports on my findings. Towards the end of my service, I can attest that CUNY Service Corps has rewarded me by allowing me to make a meaningful difference through service while gaining valuable real-world work experience, earning a wage, and receiving college credit. As a CUNY Service Corps alumni and recent graduate, I can happily say that I have been employed by my organization that I had the opportunity to serve with. I urge the Educational Committee today to continue to invest and support CUNY Service Corps and other programs alike that allow CUNY students to network, gain professionalism, gain workplace experience, and most importantly, serve their city. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I will now call on Lisa Nishimura to testify.
Time starts now.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Nishimura, and I am the engagement coordinator at Young Invincibles. Young Invincibles is a policy and advocacy nonprofit dedicated to elevating young adults in the political process and expanding economic opportunities for our generation. I first want to thank the New York City Council, Committees on Higher Education and Cultural Affairs, Libraries, and International Intergroup Relations for the opportunity to testify at today's hearing. Today's hearing is held at a critical time for not only New York's college students, but also for partner organizations such as Young Invincibles. individuals. Programs like CUNY Service Corps and Cultural Corps have been a vital part in allowing nonprofit organizations such as YI to continue to support the communities and populations we serve through essential means. For Young Invincibles, the CUNY Service Corps has helped us to increase capacity at no cost to our organization to carry out crucial projects such as developing a basic needs website where interns who have matched with us have created materials that raise awareness about food and mental health resources both on and off their CUNY campuses. We've also been able to train interns in policy and advocacy through a Young Advocates program, a 14-week program where college students can learn tools, skills, and knowledge of policy and advocacy on higher educational issues here in New York City and New York State. In addition to the program, some interns organized Advocacy Day where young adult college students can advocate for pressing higher educational issues to elected officials and legislators who represent their communities. More importantly, CUNY Service Corps provided us with the opportunity to elevate young adult voices on the issues that have directly affected them and they deeply care about. Our interns have also written blog posts on higher educational issues, created social media content to further amplify the issues that impact them and other college students alike, and ultimately contributed their own visions and lens to our projects to ensure college students have the resources and supports they need. Along with being able to provide the lens of young adults, gain more capacity for the projects we work on, CUNY Service Corps and Cultural Corps also allow students to learn new skills and knowledge such as advocacy and higher educational issues, allow them to grow professionally and personally through building social capital, and ultimately be paid for their own contributions and their growth. As a CUNY cultural alumna myself, I can personally attest to how this program has led me to my current position. Although I was an intern with Young Invincibles through my time at CUNY Cultural Corps, the organization I was matched with at the time had not only further developed my personal skills to be more employable, but I built the social capital I needed to open the door for more opportunities. Months later, after I ended my internship with CUNY Cultural Corps, my former supervisor had given me the application to the first New York Young Advocates program. Now I can say that I was a part of the inaugural cohort of the New York Young Advocates program in spring 2020, which led me to being an organizing fellow in spring 2021, and now an engagement coordinator at Young Invincibles. Without having been given the opportunity to be with CUNY Cultural Corps, I will not be here today. Therefore, I urge the committees on higher education and cultural affairs, libraries, and international intergroup relations to continue investing in programs like CUNY Service Corps and Cultural Corps, so that partner organizations such as Young Invincibles can provide the opportunities for other students like myself and other former interns like Alejandra to gain skills, knowledge, and supports they need to be well equipped for professional and personal endeavors they want to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Lisa. I would like to take a moment to recognize Councilmember Dharma Diaz, who has joined our hearing today. And Mojubalu Olufunke Okome, you may now begin your testimony.
Time starts now.
Good afternoon. My name is Mojubalu Olufunke Okome, and I'm a professor of political science at Brooklyn College. I am representing the University Faculty Senate. I'm a member of its executive committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to hear about all these great programs that CUNY has. I think they should be funded. I actually think there's a need to do needs assessment to see how many of our students need these programs that are not accessing them. Not just because, we have this pandemic that's affecting us, but because they either don't have enough information or they do not have enough support to scale through the application process. I think, with these programs, as with many others, CUNY is punching way above its weight. And I want to applaud the people who are running the programs. But I am obviously a Black woman. I have two sons who passed through universities different from CUNY, where they were really serious minorities. And I do think that if we are to really make equity a reality, in spite of all these success stories we've heard, there is a lot of work to do. And some of that work involves counseling. As much as we're punching above our weight, I think we could do better in terms of providing the kind of support that makes sure that people don't only see the information, they're able to scale through the hurdle of going through the application process. I'm saying this because, you know, if we have persistent challenges in terms of seeing the equity in the numbers that we, or percentages that we want, then that says that there's more that we can do as an institution. So my, and I'm saying this also because I've taught at Brooklyn College for over 20 years now. And before that, I taught at Fordham University. And I attended Columbia University for my PhD. So from my children and myself, you know, I have a whole lot of experience with higher education in the US. We need to give more support. I urge the City Council to increase the budget. I urge the bodies within CUNY that are doing this work to do a better kind of needs assessment. I'm not saying they're not doing their work. They're doing an excellent job, so that we really serve our students, and then we have the outcomes that reflect the effort that has been put into these initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. I will now call on Elise Buxbaum to testify.
Time starts now.
Thank you, Chairs Barron and Van Bramer, for hosting today's hearing on the CUNY Cultural Corps and Service Corps. My name is Elise Buxbaum, and I'm honored to testify today as a former CUNY employee and now as Executive Vice President of the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust. The museum is committed to the crucial mission of educating diverse visitors about Jewish life before, during, and after the Holocaust, and about the lessons of what hate can do. We are dedicated to education and remembrance. The museum became a partner organization with the CUNY Cultural Corps program in 2018. Since then, more than a dozen students have interned with us, growing their skill set in departments across the museum. For example, last year, in the midst of the pandemic, we hosted 4 CUNY interns within our collections, education, and development teams. Following all safety protocols, they work both remotely and in the office to give a more hands-on experience. And now I'm excited to share that Denise, a first-generation nursing student with a Mexican background from the Bronx, just started with my team yesterday. Cultural Corps students receive real work experience on projects that help advance the museum's mission. In addition, they participate in our educational programming, including engaging with the Holocaust survivor to hear personal stories of trauma, hope, and resiliency. Last year, Alistair, a finance student, helped research possible education program funders, a number of which are now museum supporters. And Lauren, a film major, she worked with our collections department to migrate recorded historical testimonies so that generations to come can access survivor stories. After the CUNY program, she applied for a general internship and stayed with the museum for the summer. The museum is committed to helping former CUNY Cultural Corps members stay connected to the institution and each other. We always encourage the students to apply for additional internships with us and positions once they've graduated. We also open doors to other institutions across New York City and provide professional references. We deeply believe that helping students realize different career paths through nonprofit experience is critical to diversifying the city workforce. Further, their varied life experiences enhance the museum's ongoing diversity, equity, inclusion efforts by ensuring a wide range of perspectives are represented in our museum. At a time when culturals are really suffering, we are truly grateful for the opportunity to host these interns and bring future-focused and positive perspectives into our space. Reciprocally, the CUNY students lost a year during the pandemic, and they need this work experience. We deeply appreciate the hard work of the Cultural Corps team, who ensured safe procedures to continue the partnership. They adeptly pivoted to host a virtual matching fair, which made the recruiting process much easier. CUNY Cultural Corps allows New York City institutions such as ours to host committed people who are ready to serve organizations that pledge to give back to their communities. The Museum of Jewish Heritage looks forward to continuing this relationship in the current academic year for years to come. Thank you again to the Council. I urge your continued support of the CUNY Cultural Corps and Service Corps programs. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Before I turn to Chairs Barron and Van Bramer, I'd like to remind council members to use the raise hand function in Zoom to indicate that you have a question for the panel. Chair Barron.
I just want to thank this panel. It's always informative to hear from those who've been directly involved, either as interns or as hosts. And we get that ability to see what's happening, to find out if there's some gaps or some things that need to be done. But what I'm hearing is it's working well and more money would be helpful. And I agree, I appreciate the comment about support, which is the question that I had posed to the previous panel. How can we make sure that as our students engage in challenging times and situations, that they can get some support to help them get through. But I want to thank the panel for their comments, for their participation, and for being here today. Thank you. Councilmember Van Bramer.
Thank you, Chair Barron. And I agree, often we create programs, we fund programs, and then the most rewarding part of that is to actually see them manifested and to see the good that comes. And when you hear from young people like Lisa Nishimura, you have a sense that we actually accomplished some good here, and there are good things occurring. And Elise telling the story of I think it was 12 interns that your museum has worked with, and I think it was a young woman who just started yesterday, and it sounds like your department is a great success story. I guess I would just ask you, Elise, and I realize that every museum and institution is different, there are different sizes, there are different experiences, but you may or may not have heard the line of questioning that I was asking before about the long-term success of the program, right? Which is to truly create a pipeline to leadership, and how do we make that happen, right? We know we've got an internship program, I think, that is successful. Clearly, it could obviously be more successful if it had more funding, as you know how these things work. And then it seems like we've got some success, although the data, we still need more data on how many folks, young people, are being hired in full-time positions in our cultural organizations. But you're obviously part of that success, as so is Lisa and others. And then I think the third piece of this, gauging how successful the program is, and ultimately is the pipeline into leadership, right? Is making sure these young folks, interns, new hires, then are provided that support in every way. So, I mean, how do you think that should work, or how will it work at your museum, and how could the Department of Cultural Affairs in CUNY help make that a reality, which I know we all want, right? Is to see all of these young people being the curators and the CEOs and presidents in 10, 20 years.
Thank you very much, Chair Van Bramer. I will say it's an absolute privilege hosting these CUNY Cultural Core students. They're incredible, and each one comes with a different set of skills and a different set of interests. And I think while I can't speak specifically because our students are all still in programs, or while they've graduated have moved on to graduate school and are not yet fully in the workforce, I'll tell you that I personally sit down with each one and learn about what they want to do and what skills they want to grow. And we focus whatever training we do specifically on that. Andreas just started today. He is a history major with a biology background, and he wants to learn how to write grants, because as all of us know in the nonprofit world, you have to know how to be able to write grants in order for your institution to survive. And so we're giving him projects, start to completion, do the research, learn how to grow this. And I think that if we as professionals make a concerted effort to think about what skills we're giving them, I think we'll have that pipeline. If people are just filing papers and shredding, it's not the experience that anyone wants, not the institution, and certainly not the CUNY students. So I think it's up to us.
Thank you, Elise. And I'm sure you are an incredible mentor for these young folks. And, you know, I think that is one of the ways in which we'll be successful here in creating that pipeline is actually tailoring the experience to the talents, the experience, and the needs of the young people. I also see that Councilmember Eric Ulrich has joined us, so I want to recognize his attendance and participation in the hearing. But yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective, Elise, and appreciate all that you do, obviously, for the young people and for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairs Van Bramer and Barron. If you have no other questions, I will give the other attending council members a moment to raise their hand using did we have a hand raised? I thought I saw one. Pardon. Pardon, I'm seeing a hand raised, but I am not quite sure who is doing this. Oh, I see here.
It's one of our panelists.
It's one of our panelists. Pardon, would you like a moment?
Yes, please.
Time starts now.
Oh, pardon, you're muted again.
What I'd like to add to all the great inputs that we have had is that it's easy for people sometimes to get lost in a big system like ours. And so, I think that we should take seriously the fact that there are often structural barriers to entry into any opportunity. And for me, I don't think that our students of color are actually benefiting to the extent that they can from the various opportunities that are at CUNY. That's why I'm saying that we need more support. We need more mentoring. We need to make, if you are in a place where you don't feel entirely that it is your space, you need more. And, I don't think that that just having the program and the information, some people can land on their feet, take advantage. Other people need more support. And I would like to urge all the programs to figure out ways of finding the students that are shyer, that are less certain, that, maybe start the application but don't finish, and work with them to integrate them into these programs, because that's what is needed from my perspective. And I've watched for 20 years what we're doing, and I'm impressed, but I think we could do more.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Chairs Van Bramer and Barron. I believe we have now heard from everyone that has signed up to testify, and we appreciate your time and presence. If we inadvertently missed anyone that would like to testify, please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and I will call on you in the order of hands raised. All right. Seeing no one else, I would like to note that written testimony, which will be reviewed in full by committee staff, may be submitted to the record up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. Chair Barron, we have concluded public testimony for this hearing. If you would like to close us out.
Thank you. Before I close, I want to offer Chair Van Bramer any closing remarks that he would want to make.
I just want to say thank you to all of the teams who had a hand in making today's hearing possible. Thank you, especially to all those who waited around to give public testimony. And thank you, Chair Barron, for your partnership. And look forward in whatever capacities we should be in to making sure that this program continues to be a success for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your partnership and for helping to bring this hearing to a great presentation, very informative, and a bright spot in this time of gloom and wondering what's going to happen, a bright spot to be able to give us some inspiration. Thank you to all the panelists, and thank you once again to all the sergeants at arms and to all of the staff that work with that. And with that, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.